Yes.
What do you feel like is the challenge that you find yourself battling the most with your creative work that you have to overcome often?
I think the fear of having to stand, like, I think for me, I want to make work that is significant. And what I mean by significant is work that outlasts the current moment and connects with a wide range of people. To do that, you typically need to be quite talented and skilled at crafting something, but at its core, you need to be vulnerable and willing to say something before you know how people are going to respond to it. And that fear, I feel like, is the work I have to put in to overcome, which is for me to say something significant, to put a piece of work out that is meaningful will require me to present myself without knowing how people will respond to it. And that, especially when you think that the projects I want to be a part of might take multiple years to come together, like that is a terrifying prospect to spend years doing something, to put it out and it not resonate or not know how people are going to react to it. I feel like that fear is kind of always churning in the back of my head,
Mm,
as I'm looking at the next 5 to 10 years of my career in which I'm going to start putting out work that is not just my work for hire stuff,
right.
where it's like, because all the work for hire stuff, it's easy to at some point just go like, well, I don't know. The idea wasn't great or the client screwed it up
Mm,
or, if the agency had listened to me, whatever, there's always an excuse
right.
with work for hire stuff. But like when it's my own project, there's nothing to hide behind.
Right.
And I'm nervous about that transition.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's like taking total ownership over something is scary. And also, I think it's scary to be, like the vulnerability. That's what connects a good story. Like, that's what people
for sure.
watch stories for.
100%.
But it takes a huge amount of bravery to be able to say that first before anyone else,
Yeah.
to be the first one to
Yep.
raise your hand and speak up.
Yes.
That's really a terrifying notion. And I think to your point, that I've my background's in like the tech media world. And so it's like
Yeah.
I'm, we have like these very instant feedback loops of like, oh,
Yep.
we're testing this. That worked or that didn't work. And it's just like very low
Yep.
stakes testing. But for what you're describing,
Yep.
it's very high stakes because it's a lot of money,
Yeah.
years,
Yep.
and you're
Years.
you're
Yep.
putting your ass on the line a little bit, basically putting
Yep.
yourself out there in a way that no one else is. It's just like a vulnerability that not no one else is willing to take, and that's why it's important that you do, or a filmmaker or a
Right.
creator does. And that's
For
what makes
sure.
it valuable. That's what makes it, it's what makes something sharp to cut through the noise of everything else going on, is that vulnerability.
Yep.
But that's a hard step to take.
Yeah. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
And like it's like cyclically terrifying. So like even if you do it once
Mm,
well, like it starts all over again, right? The next one is like you just might as well start it completely over of that kind of like, do I really have anything to say? Is this worth pursuing? Is this like, how does this intersect with like blah blah blah? I mean, I got to work on a documentary about the making of The Revenant, which was really amazing to like sit with Alejandro and the director of that documentary was a guy named Elliot Rausch, who's like a very kind of spiritual filmmaker as well. And Alejandro, I mean, we were sitting with him, like cameras cut, we're just sitting there, and he literally was like, "Guys, I still don't know what the movie's about." And the movie's like
it's like done.
edited.
Right.
It's cut.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's done. I guarantee you, like, and he basically was like, I may never know like what the movie was about,
Wow.
like why I felt so compelled to do it. I'm like, dude, you've spent so much of your life
Yeah.
like working on this one film. And not just that, but like people have reacted to it. People, like it's
Mm,
out in the world and he's still like wrestling with like what it all means.
right.
And I found that to be both terrifying but also like oddly
For
comforting
sure.
that like somebody working literally at the pinnacle of like my chosen art form is like, yeah, I don't know, I have no idea, but like
Yeah.
I felt compelled and so I went for it.
That's a crazy story.
Dude, That's bananas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To be honest, I still don't remember what that movie was about. I loved it, but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it was an interesting I just you weren't were you there, like, shooting in the cold?
We went no, they when we were on set with them they had, like, an on-set, like, person filming, like, the entire
Oh,
production, so
cool,
a lot of the footage is from that particular filmmaker, but we went out they were doing a bunch of pickups in Los Angeles, like, out in the woods,
cool.
and so we I was on set for that bit, which was really cool. We actually filmed the opening sequence of that movie is, like, a village is burned to the ground and, like, Leo's wife
Mhm.
dies, whatever. That actually was added after they'd already wrapped,
Wow.
principal photography, and they'd gotten a cut of the film, and basically, the kind of general consensus was that people just weren't quite connecting with the journey because they didn't know that backstory,
Mhm.
and so they added that in basically after editing the film together to, like, create kind of an emotional impetus
Right.
for this relationship between, the son and Leo, Forrest and Leo. And, but they were chasing the snow, so they were down in Argentina, like, shooting stuff, and the production designer, is a guy named Jack Hitt, who's, like, legendary production designer, multiple Oscars, worked for everybody, really amazing guy. He built this entire village, it took him 4 months to build the village, um, and they burned it down in a day. Um, and not only that, they were down in Argentina shooting, Snow, the kind of epic fight between Tom Hardy and Leonardo. And so Alejandro never saw the village in person until
Wow.
the day before. And so I was with Jack after Alejandro had seen it and they'd made their plan. And like I was with Jack the kind of basically it was late in the afternoon and we were filming him and he basically walked through his entire village and I'm telling you this is like you could live there. It
Mm.
was amazing. It was just like the detail work and like I mean it was an incredible set. And you'll never see 90% of the work, that he put into it. And he basically was walking around like saying goodbye to this set that he'd just spent
Wow.
5 months of his life building that was going to be burned to the ground and, the next day. And he just like at one point he was just like sitting in the middle of this house
Mm.
hut thing that he had built. Um, and like just like letting it happen, just sitting there
Mm.
you know? And I was like, "What are you thinking about?" And he was like, "I'm just thankful for my work, thankful that I got to put myself into like this
Mm.
place, and that my team was able to do that, and that we were able to work so hard to like bring this to life in a way that it will feel real no matter if people see much of it or not,
Mm.
you know? And it was like, bro,
That's inspiring.
like is incredible. So I feel like that I bring that story up because I feel like I carry that with me of going like he like you have to put that much of yourself into the work.
Mm.
Like whether people see it or not, connect with it or not, whether it gets burned down tomorrow. Like I think that level of intensity of vulnerability, of attention to detail, like it all kind of translates in a really amazing, dare I say, spiritual um, way that you just feel it. And I think the people that execute at the highest level are people who are inextricably tied to their work,
Mm.
right? It's in the DNA of what they put out.
Mm.
And so that's what I want to do. It just can be pretty terrifying.